GM and Toyota and Verizon are just a few. There still are companies this morning they will not mention, or just a few that the central bank aid programs also supported. U.S. subsidiaries of banks based in East Asia, which we like to call China, Europe, and Canada, while rescuing money market mutual funds held by millions of Americans. The biggest users of the Fed lending programs were some of the world's largest banks, Citigroup, Bank of America, and Goldman Sachs. Swiss-based UBS and Britain Barclays scoring more than 21,000 loan records released Wednesday under new financial regulatory legislation. This, again, ladies and gentlemen, is a pure fallacy put forth for chewing gum for the mind, for the media, for the generally dumb public, for the quote-unquote conservatives and liberals, as the socioeconomic destruction of America still running in fifth gear at 140 miles an hour behind the scenes. But the data they're putting forth is now revealing the banks turn to the Fed for help every day, almost daily in the fall of 2008, as the central bank lowered lending standards and extended relief to just about every kind of institution it had never, ever assisted before. I doubt that. I doubt the crises that we had seen throughout the years, the little mini crises. Now, of course, they're trying to tell us that it's behind us and that we're in a recovery, even though everything has just gotten worse. Everything they predicted for this year on Wall Street, okay, has never happened. Right? The recovery did not happen. The numbers are horrific, but today they're better than expectations, like yesterday. Sales are still down 72% from '07, but, what the heck? They're all still in business. How'd everybody stay in business? Oh, the plunge protection team. Fed officials emphasized that their actions were meant to stabilize the financial system that was collapsing in late '08. But the extent of the lending to the banks and the generous terms of those deals have now heightened political peril for the central bank that's already under the gun for a wide range of actions, including the $600 billion bond buys. But trust me, the European central bank's doing the very same thing this morning with Portugal and Ireland and Spain as we speak. The American people are now learning of the incredible and jaw-dropping details of the Fed's multi-trillion-dollar bailout of Wall Street and corporate America, said Senator Bernard Sanders, a longtime Fed critic, whose provision in the Wall Street regulatory overhaul requires these new disclosures. Perhaps most surprising is the massive sums that went to bail out foreign and private banks and corporations. As a result so far of this disclosures, other members of Congress and I will be taking a very extensive look at all the aspects of how the Federal Reserve functions. Now, in case you missed it, and again, this is just coming in very, very slowly, but some of the money, just some of it, besides, everybody. I mean, every stock company, every company that issued stock got bailed out. And you can tell the ones that didn't, the ones that don't issue stock, all the builders, drywall companies, electricians, out here, they're all gone. The ones and restaurants, they're all gone. The one that issued stock, they're all still there. How can that be? What? Citigroup got $2.2 trillion. Now, stop and think for 1 second. Now, remember the $787 billion bailout that, this is massive. Yes, we're going to make money on it. Well, it turns out we only lost a little. But the Fed shoveled $2.2 trillion to Citigroup, followed by Merrill Lynch. They got $2.1 trillion. That's how you can afford to buy a $150,000 toilet in the executive office. Morgan Stanley got $2 trillion. What? Bank of America, $1.1 trillion. Bear Stearns, they got $960 billion. Couldn't make it. Goldman Sachs got $620 billion. J.P. Morgan Chase, $260 billion. Wells Fargo only got $150 billion. Many of the individual loans they took were worth billions and had short durations and were paid back and renewed many times. Now, we call this prosperity, and they call it earnings, ladies and gentlemen, because the banks on a whole could only make $17 billion so far for the year. That's not too bad, considering they got about $10 trillion between them. The numbers are staggering. And why? Why do we bail this out? Well, I'll tell you why. Look at General Motors. General Motors bailed out. Everybody's taken care of, and they got to go public again with their stock. All you people pile in there, and now, miraculously, they were able to fund some of their pension funds. General Motors took another step towards cleaning up its balance sheet when it pumped $4 billion in cash into the underfunded U.S. pension plans. The company made the payments 2 weeks after their historic initial public stock offering. Yesterday, they had their CEO, who was actually doing a Nixon. He was standing there holding up the two peace signs, "I am not a crook," in front of the Chevy Volt. Yes, the car of the year is now heading to a showroom near you with a really long extension cord. But why, really? Why, really, do we get to bail these banks out, and what happened, and why this is not going to help you at all? Well, take a look. Take a look at the Bank of America. This morning is announcing that, yes, we are now, they call it Asia, but we are now China's bank. Yes, the Bank of America is becoming the Bank of China, as their revenue has now risen 30%. You bail them out, and they turn around and they go to China. Well, that's fine, I guess. Are we going to call this prosperity here in America? They're loaning people money for motorcycles and scooters and new oxens and maybe loan on some rice fields over there, and they're doing business. Here, you want to build what? A hotel? No, why? There's already 10 empty next to you. Just buy one of those. Will you loan me money for that? No, we won't. Bank of America is now headed for their best year ever on mergers and acquisitions in the Asia Pacific. We'll just call that China. How's that? Their best year since '05, arranging initial public offerings since '07. That's good. They should get a couple $1 trillion so they can go to China and loan them money. General Motors says its sales in China now has climbed 11% in November, and that is exactly what that IPO is about, ladies and gentlemen. If you think it's about selling Chevy Volts to people that are on unemployment in Paducah, Kansas, you can just forget it. It ain't going to happen. They're not going to buy them. But yet sales in China has climbed 11% from a year earlier on strong demand for its Buick and Chevrolet models. They love them over there. They can't get enough. Why not? They got all our jobs. They got everything, that what we used to be able to put kids through school in Ohio State, Michigan State, people working in the UAW, auto line, steel workers, you name it. They're all going. They're over there now working for nothing. They don't have to put their kids through college because the communist government tells them where they're going to work, decides if they're going to educate them or not. GM said today that 196,990 vehicles sold by GM and its venture in China set a monthly record as the company's 2010 sales in the world's biggest vehicle market now shot past the 2 million mark. In this season of hope, I'd like to add, maybe sprinkle in a little myself. I would like to hope that the country that we got to grow up in, or I was lucky enough to grow up in the 60s, maybe the 70s, and some of the 80s, but certainly by NAFTA and GATT and Bill Clinton and Madeleine Albright and Mickey Cantor, they had given it all away, and now we've just watched the complete go full circle as Americans now are standing in line waiting for the season of hope here, hoping that they extend their unemployment checks. Otherwise, 2 million people by Christmas Day will be out of any type of income stream. And you wonder as what the effects that will have here. Because as we all know, a lot of people would love to roll up their sleeves and bootstraps and get back to work. But really, the last manufacturing job in America was home building. Was the last one to speak of, right? And obviously, well, you look at who was doing the work here. The mass migration of people coming over the border were doing probably 60 or 70% of all the work here in Arizona and the southern states. But you're looking at it today as a manufacturing job, and it's gone as well. So while all this was going on, asset appreciation was covering up everything. First, of course, it was, the tech stock miracle and Wall Street and trading and day trading covered up the fact that, well, little by little, we were giving our companies tax breaks to go to China. Well, first it was Mexico and the Maquiladores, and then they figured out that, well, the Chinese will work cheaper, and they actually shut the factories down in Mexico, put a postage stamp on them, and mailed them off to Asia. And nobody cared. I do remember seeing a commercial for U.S. textile mills with a little girl talking to her mommy, "Why is Daddy out of work?" Because people don't buy American-made. And they used to run the ads, "Buy American-made clothes. Look for the Made in America tag." Remember that? That was in the 90s, ladies and gentlemen. Look for the Made in America tag. Today, get in on GM's new IPO because they're going to sell cars in China. Bail out Bank of America because they're going to loan money to China. It doesn't end there. Starbucks says it's going to triple the number of its cafes. Hey, I like that. They reported earnings. Their stock's up today. Here in America, no, they're closing stores in America. That's how they beat the street. They are going to triple their numbers of cafes. Where else? In China. My dad used to go, this place looks like a Chinese fire drill. Of course, we have seen the Chinese traffic jams that last now for weeks or months. There might still be one going on somewhere. And I wonder what the traffic jam with people on Starbucks is. Morgan Stanley, how much money did they get? Nobody knows. Why? Morgan Stanley now has received Chinese government approval to sell 34.3% of its stake in China International Capital Corp. to the country's top investment bank, paving the way for the U.S. group to set up a fresh venture in the country. Yes, they're going to go public over there in China. Caterpillar, everybody. They're all going. Well, in this season of hope, I hope someday we all want it back. I hope we want it back. Everything that everybody used to owe us money, we now owe everybody money. And, of course, this is not just, here, just in America. I mean, we may have invented the problem. We may have been the ones who perfected it. We may have been the ones who exported it. And now the very same people that sat in the boardrooms that engineered this whole economic collapse are now engineering the Great Recovery. All the politicians that sat on all the banks and all the boards and all the commissions that were all there through all of this, they're all still there. And now they're sorry they wiped us out, but they're going to fix it. Yes, the people that caused the problems are now, of course, the ones that are leading the charge and telling us that it's all over. You think it is? I had said that the day to come back in if you were an investor to buy a house in Arizona was the day the Arizona Republic said that houses were the worst investment you could ever make. And we haven't seen that day yet, but this week the front page did say houses were going to fall more, could be bottoming. European Central Bank Jean-Claude Trichet, who was a skier, Jean-Claude Killy, said Thursday that the bank will extend special measures now to get ready cash to banks as it responds to the government debt crisis that has engulfed the single currency zone. His failure to announce an increase in the pace at which the central banks would print money and buy government bonds pushed the euro sharply lower. Except Spain had to sell a bunch of bonds today, and somehow people bought them. And everybody in the bond pits are going, you don't think Jean-Claude Trichet is doing a Federal Reserve and monetizing the debt in Europe, do you? Of course they are. It's exactly what they're doing, because you look at what happened in Spain, and, of course, this morning everything was fixed. The euro popped higher after reports that the U.S. would support a large aid package. So let me see if I got this right. Now we're going to bail out Europe as well. This is like, well, I guess the best way to look at it is if you were a company, if you were a factory, and you were selling, it'd be like, let's say you were Delphi selling parts to General Motors. It would be like Delphi bailing out General Motors so they could keep selling them parts. Where does this stop? I mean, it just keeps going round and round and round and round. And, of course, everything that they've put forth doesn't work. We talked about how stimulus works yesterday, if you caught the show, where it's just the same amount of money going around and around and around and doesn't produce anything. And that's where the problem lies. And nobody wants to admit. Nobody, anywhere, not any financial planners, not any politicians, not any bankers, not any public companies, not any stockbrokers, not anybody wants to admit that it's the failed policies of taking an American-producing manufacturing society and turning it into a third-world service economy that we can't recover while piling on more and more and more debt with our factories not running. If you don't produce anything, ladies and gentlemen, how can you call it prosperity? And I know that's old school thinking.
All of this is being done by the elite. I was told by my elitist friend before he died exactly what they were doing. All of this has been planned behind closed doors. None of it is happening by chance. And all of it is for the sole purpose of, and I've said this so many times before, the name of the game is control, and the end goal of the elite is to own everything in the United States of America. Yes, you heard me correctly. I'm going to get into this more later in the course of this presentation, exactly how they intend to do what and what's going to happen to you